Hi friends, my name is Stephanie Quick with Frontier Alliance International, and this is another session of the Maranatha Global Bible Study, the Matthew 24:14 series. I have yet to find a less clunky way to say all that. So every week we release a session of the Maranatha Global Bible Study, and through this year, if you're watching in real time through 2024, we're alternating weeks. So one week, Gabe Caligiuri and Joel Richardson go through the Book of Revelation series together, and they are up to like session 77. And then in the alternate weeks, we're going through Matthew 24:14, and there's a handful of us that rotate through that. So you have me this week. Sorry, guys. But we are... I'll call this session like... My title in my own notes is When Goliath is Serving Nazi Kool-Aid, or maybe we could call it like the Goliath Gospel or something. So I'll get into that in a minute. But the reason we want to just sit in Matthew 24:14 for a year is because it's just good to, like, the way I think about it is it's like you mow your grass every Saturday morning. And some things you just got to keep going back over again and again and again, and it's worthwhile, and things grow. So metaphors fall apart, but this is like mowing the yard. And the reason I really love this verse is because it's got these 7 components that all encapsulate the value system of Frontier Alliance International. So I'll read the verse, I'll point to those components, and then we'll get into the Goliath thing. Matthew 24:14. This gospel of the kingdom will be preached, will be proclaimed as a witness. Nope, sorry, I'm skipping ahead. This gospel of the kingdom will be preached or proclaimed in all the world as a witness to all the nations, and then the end will come. So I see 7 elements here that really, every one of them, I just get energized by, and I think we're anchored in that. We're anchored in that. We're anchored in that. We are giving ourselves to that. So this gospel of the kingdom will be preached in all the world as a witness to all nations, and then the end will come. This week, we're going to kind of park in this gospel of the kingdom, because why not? And sometimes when we do that, when that's the focus, we just kind of feast on this gospel of the kingdom, what it is. But this week is a bit of what it's not, or what it looks like when the nations contest or oppose, or when individuals, when our hearts oppose this gospel of the kingdom. There are different ways we couch it, and I think that there's a story that's quite relevant to us today, because what I've noticed in the last, decade plus, I started Covenant and Controversy. The Lord gave me Covenant and Controversy as an assignment in July 2012. So 14 years this month. Happy anniversary. And that was really what pulled me into, there were things I believed about Scripture, but I had never worked on anything that kind of packaged it for public proclamation. And so that was kind of the way the Lord roped me into all of this. And now I'm living in the Golan Heights. I was living in New Zealand at the time, and now I'm in the Golan Heights in the north of Israel in wartime, which is exactly the opposite of what I said I would be doing 12 years ago. But here we are. So what I have noticed in my 12 years, and I'm still quite young, on no level am I trying to say I'm an expert, but I did not anticipate the degree to which the issue of Israel within the church even felt like a snake pit. And I have seen too many people over the last 12 years that I've really engaged with this in discourse and, interviews and publishing and just friendships. I've seen too many people come into this thing with a blindfold over their eyes and a sign that says, hey, I'm new here. And then they find out the hard way. They just walked into a snake pit. And if you don't know what you're doing in a snake pit, you get bit, and that venom infects your whole body. And one of the things that I've seen, we say that there's a narrow road of truth and there's a ditch on either side of this narrow road of truth. And that can mean that ditch that's really muddy in this direction could mean you've got a lot of really highly sentimental affection towards Israel. And whatever, I'll address that in a minute. There's a reason why I'm bringing that up. On the other end of it, you super oppose Israel and you buy into a theological system that is not this gospel of the kingdom. It's a different gospel, a different thing, that kind of conveniently repackages the gospel in a way that caters to Gentile ideals. And I guess I don't want to jump ahead of myself, but I'll point you to a couple things. So in Isaiah 24, for example, I see Isaiah 24 and Acts 1 tied together. In Isaiah 24, the Lord is speaking through the prophet. It's a parallel passage to Matthew 24, actually. So it's a good thing to kind of read through in tandem. And in the middle of it, Isaiah says, it's all otherwise very discouraging, except for the very middle and the very end. But Isaiah says that he could hear a new song traveling basically from the center of the earth. There's this new song that's sung in the ends of the earth, as far away as you can go from Israel, which is in fact New Zealand and the South Pacific and the Ring of Fire and Vanuatu and Tonga and Samoa. And they are singing the gospel of the kingdom. And they have correct theology, and they're not threatened by the clamor of the birth pangs. They are confessing the God of Israel and his righteousness and have a confidence in who he is and what he's doing that is carrying them through the crisis of the time of Jacob's trouble or the Great Tribulation. And it's very important to have that plumb line, because if you don't have that plumb line, you build your house on sand, and when the storm comes, you just get whipped around in the wind, in the waves, and you buy into all kinds of things that cater to your ideals and your worldview that's like putty that just gets shaped and reshaped every time you scroll through social media. If you are not anchored in what Scripture calls even this hope that is the anchor of our souls, or Paul would say in Acts 28, I'm actually in prison in Rome for the hope of Israel, so that all nations of the earth will be blessed through God's eternal purposes that he has accomplished in King Jesus, our Lord. And this train is going somewhere, and we are barreling towards the day of the Lord. And so we have to have clarity on who he is and what he's doing. We have to have clarity on this gospel of the kingdom so we recognize it when somebody gives us a different gospel. And it's pretty easy to hear a Mormon or a Jehovah's Witness. You can go, nope, just a little bit abrogated. That's something else. Or Islam, you could say, nope, that finicky little angel of light lied to you. That's a different gospel. So there are seed beds the world over for what I would call a tricky little zeitgeist. And in our day, I mean, I don't even know where to begin. I'm trying to be vague. I don't want to throw anybody under the bus. I'll read you a passage from Isaiah and a passage from Timothy, and then we'll kind of get into we'll talk about Goliath. But in Isaiah 8, the Lord spoke thus to Isaiah with a strong hand. This is verse 11. And he instructed me that I should not walk in the way of this people, saying, verse 12, do not say a conspiracy concerning everything that all these people call a conspiracy. Do not be afraid of their threats, nor be troubled. Or Jesus opened Matthew 24 saying, take heed that no one deceives you. Or let your hearts not be troubled, nor let them be afraid. He who is in you is greater than he who is in the world. And I mean, there are a billion rabbit holes you can wander down and spend your time on and meditate on. And the Lord is saying, avoid basically all of them. The Lord of hosts, him you shall hallow. Let him be your fear. Let him be your dread. 2 Timothy 2:16, he says, but keep away from godless babbling, for those who engage in it will only become more ungodly. And I think of Jesus saying, Your out of the overflow of your heart, the mouth speaks. Or Solomon saying in the Proverbs, there's life and death in the tongue. And it's like if you, out of your heart that you've been meditating on, whatever it is, the mouth speaks. If it's godless babbling or conspiracy theories or just like things that are a waste of your time, it's like you spew it out and then you swim in it and then you take it back. It's like this cyclical feedback loop, and you're just caught up in something that is not ultimately serving you or edifying you or giving you a spirit of wisdom and revelation in the knowledge of Jesus, or a spirit of discernment, or the kind of thing that can then make your speech this like sharp two-edged sword where you can bear witness to the testimony of the scriptures, the person of Jesus, the eternal purposes of God. And I'm not saying that every conversation you ever have has to be like super serious, because I assure you, if you saw like our WhatsApp threads amongst this, on the team, you'd be like, oh, they're like total dorks with, either great or questionable taste in music, or that meme's not funny. I mean, my Instagram, I'm on social media to see like videos of dogs. So, I'm saying, by all means, lighten up, have fun, find things that you enjoy, that you laugh at, especially in days like we're living in. Like, find something like Jeff gave me some advice a few months ago. He said, laugh every day. That's your homework. And a lot of times that comes from some stupid reel on Instagram, but I don't build my worldview off of what I see on the internet. I build my worldview off of the word of the Lord in the scriptures. So, that is the longest setup ever. Basically, today, let's turn to 1 Samuel 17. This is when David is still the scrawny little redheaded shepherd boy in the back hills of Bethlehem, and all of his brothers are on the front line, but he's not big enough, or whatever. He's like Cinderella. He's not there. But he gets sent to bring them lunch. So what I love about David is that he takes care of his sheep. He sets up like a babysitting shepherd to watch his sheep while he goes on this lunch errand. He takes the lunch to his brothers, and his brothers have been sitting under Goliath's taunting every day for weeks. And he keeps saying, Goliath, who's this like 9-foot tall mammoth of a man, he says, look, guys, Israel, like, let's just do this one-on-one. We can spare ourselves like the trauma of war and all of the bloodshed. We'll just, like, me and you pick a guy and we'll fight it out. And if I win, all of you become our slaves. But if you win, we become your slaves. Now, it's rhetorical. Everybody would look at him and go, oh, God, like King Saul is offering like tax-free forever. Your whole father's house doesn't have to pay taxes anymore if you can beat Goliath. But everybody's like, I'm actually probably going to die. I'll be the reason the whole nation goes back into slavery, because what Goliath is threatening to do is to undo the Exodus, and everybody's going to be ashamed of me forever. That's a huge dishonor. I'd rather pay taxes. Thank you very much. Somebody else take it up. So David comes in, this scrawny little kid. Armor doesn't fit him. The swords are too heavy. But there's been at least a couple times that he's had to like wrangle lions and bears with his bare hands to defend his flock, and he's done it successfully. So he hears Goliath, and it's not, this is the important thing, it's not that he says, oh man, this guy with a really perverse and profound nationalistic identity for his nation is threatening my deviant nationalistic identity. This wasn't about nationalism. This is how I know that. Verse 26, David says, What shall be done for the man who kills this Philistine and takes away the reproach from Israel? For who is this uncircumcised Philistine that he should defy the armies of the living God? Who does this punk think that he is? This uncircumcised Philistine means, who is this guy who's not in the covenant boasting against, ultimately he's boasting against the living God. Like, I don't need to have huge biceps to know the Lord will defend me if I take this guy on, because he's threatening to undo the Exodus. give me a sword. Nothing fits. Everything's too heavy. So he picks up 5 smooth stones, right? Pulls out a slingshot. He only needs one, not necessarily because he's so good at a slingshot, although he is, but think about it. Like he takes the slingshot. He takes down this 9-foot tall giant in one shot because the Lord just guided that rock. Now, then, interestingly, he cut Goliath's head off and he took it to Jerusalem, which meant nothing at that time. Like it wasn't, it's the city of the great king. It's always been the Lord's holy hill. But at the time, it wasn't politically significant at all. Saul was in Gibeah. Nothing was in Jerusalem. The only time we've ever really heard about Jerusalem at that point was when Abraham took Isaac there. And the first thing we hear is that Melchizedek was the king of, he was a priest of God and the king of a city called Salem, which is an early name for the city of Jerusalem. So, with kind of all that in place, I forgot to start my timer. I don't actually know how long I've been talking, and I try to keep these sessions kind of bite-sized. What is my point here? I have seen, as people come into the snake pit with the blindfold and the sign that says, I'm new here, and they fall victim to the intoxication of, like Zechariah 12, the Lord says, I'm going to make the Jerusalem a cup of staggering and stupor for all nations. I do think there's a moment in history where the Lord does that in a very profound way. We might be watching it happen, but in general, I think the principle holds throughout history. If you approach Jerusalem in a carnal way, you just get drunk on her. And so I've seen a number of people who grew up in a lot of sentiment, like a sentimental affection for Israel as an evangelical, and they didn't really know why, then fully react and jump over here, and they adopt traditions of like Gentile Christian, like church father, Roman Empire, anti-Judaic theological tradition that justified anti-Semitic civil convictions that led to something like the Holocaust. We expound on this in Covenant and Controversy Part 1. That is free online. You can watch it in the app. You can watch it on YouTube. And the thing that has bewildered me the most is that people who are trying so hard to not become Nazis in the name of not becoming Nazis end up getting drunk on the exact same Kool-Aid that the Nazis got drunk on. The exact same Kool-Aid that Goliath was drunk on. And I'm still just grappling with the whole thing. But ultimately, I think the only thing that can safeguard us is actual clarity on the Lord, the name of the Lord, the eternal purposes of the Lord. Like, how do you become somebody in the ends of the earth singing the new song and you're not threatened by the crises and calamity of global tribulation, and you have correct theology that you can confess with confidence and gratitude for who the Lord is and what he's doing, and you know where this thing is going, and you don't get bought into whatever different weird narrative that you find online. You carve out a bunker in prayer and the word and fellowship in real time with real people and real conversations. And like, if I understand sometimes circumstances are circumstances, but if you are only engaging with like YouTube videos of the Bible, but you're not engaging in real time with somebody, you're not getting on the phone with somebody, I would really encourage you to meet with someone in like eyeball to eyeball, face to face, or hop on the phone or something. Like you just, YouTube won't sustain you. The Lord can breathe on a lot of things, and we hope that these resources, and we're certainly not the only ones with resources. We hope that they're edifying. We hope they're encouraging. We hope that they're helpful, but they're for sure not like it. So I'll close with this point. When you combine like the woke buzzwords of like, I'm 38, so 20 years ago, I'm going into college, and social justice was like the thing. And I was super into it because the Lord is with the poor. You see this consistently throughout Scripture. And in the day of the Lord, he exalts the poor. And in the ages to come, the first will be last and the last will be first. All of those things. But if you only have a social justice gospel, you go the way of Judas Iscariot. And here's how I know this. Because when Mary of Bethany broke the alabaster, poured the costly perfume on Jesus, Judas Iscariot was the first one to say that was a stupid thing to do. Mary is the only one in the room with the revelation that Jesus is the Lord of the resurrection, and so he's going to demonstrate his lordship over the resurrection, which means he's going to be resurrected, which means he has to die first. She's the only one with clarity on this, and so she anoints him for his death and burial. It's incredible. And then Judas goes, that was a stupid thing to do. I don't know who this man is. I don't have any clarity on his eternal purposes. And now I'm drunk on the Kool-Aid. That was a stupid thing to do. But here's how he says it. He goes, we could have sold that and given all of that money to the poor. Look at all the good things we could have done with this that you ruined because you're foolish, Mary. And then all of the other guys, all of the other disciples, meaning all of the apostolic leaders of the early church, except for Paul because he wasn't in the room yet, all of them went, gosh, you know what, Judas, you're right. Mary, that was a really stupid thing to do. We could have sold all that to the poor. However, Judas obviously had a lot of compromise in his life, and he was more interested in taking the money. None of them knew that. There was a lot of things people just needed to wait a few days and weeks and get some clarity on. But I fear that if we are less this gospel of the kingdom and more Jesus makes my life better, then we are vulnerable to this windstorm of a social justice liberation gospel. So, and we see this here in Israel. You know, I mentioned earlier that I can't remember what I was saying, but like to the point that there are theological traditions in the church wherein we made the gospel more palatable to Gentile interests in direct disobedience to Paul's warning and admonition to the Romans, where he said, I don't want you to be ignorant of what the Lord is doing. I don't want you to be ignorant of the mystery of Israel, because if you're ignorant, you're going to become arrogant, and then you're going to boast against the branches, and then you're going to go way off the path. And we've done that in church history. And in a micro, as this gospel of the kingdom is preached to all nations around the world, it is very easy to, it's just a human wiring. We want to kind of accommodate our own interests and ideals. And one of the ways this manifests in the Middle East is it becomes in the States, we have been talking about the virtue or lack thereof of like a seeker-friendly church planting strategy or a seeker-friendly gospel or whatever. In the Middle East, it's like a Muslim-friendly gospel. And it's not just that you have to get through theological hurdles that the word was and is God and became flesh and dwelt amongst us for an incarnate witness. That's one hurdle. Or God the Father. That's another hurdle. But the thing that nobody wants to hear is the Lord is the Zionist of all Zionists, and Jesus is a Zionist. And, and so one of the ways the gospel's kind of gotten reshaped and thus become a different gospel in the Middle East and Arab world is a social justice gospel for Muslims, meaning they are now David and Israel is now Goliath, and the Lord, because the Lord always fights for David and opposes Goliath, obviously would then, really, this is like a conviction that the Lord is going to destroy Israel. Ultimately, they've repurposed biblical scriptures, the test that to destroy Israel. There's a bunch of Westerners parroting this now. This is Goliath's Kool-Aid. It's the same thing the Nazis were drinking. And am just doing this session to say, if this gospel of the kingdom is going to be preached and proclaimed to all nations throughout the world as a witness, and then the end will come, it's very important to, the apostles would say, you got to like guard and keep and steward this gospel of the kingdom, because Jesus mandated and promised this gospel of the kingdom will be preached and proclaimed in all the world as a witness. But I think often, I talk about this a lot, Galatians 1, Paul says, if you preach any other message, it's not this gospel of the kingdom, it's a different gospel. And anybody who preaches a different gospel, he says, let them be accursed. Meaning, but he also put this on himself. So I know the language I'm about to say is really harsh. He says, even if I did it, if an angel of light appeared to you and gave you a different gospel, let that angel of light be accursed. So read Joseph Smith's formation of Mormonism through Galatians 1. Read Muhammad's pioneering of Islam through Galatians 1. And Paul says, if I, the guy who gave you the gospel of the kingdom, if I came back through town, if I came back through Galatia, and I gave you a different gospel, then I am to be accursed, because the message is the priority, not the messenger. So we have to guard and keep this gospel of the kingdom, which means we also have to have the discernment to identify when it starts to deviate. And, in all of the furore of protests and opposition or arguments about a war in the Middle East, do not let your news or your experiences shape your theology, but let the biblical testimony be the filter through which you process news and information in your neighborhood and in the nations of the earth, and certainly in the nation of the covenant. So, all that said, we always have the notes. If you're watching this in the app, the notes should be attached. If you're watching this on YouTube, we archive everything at fai.online/mgbs. And you can search by series, you can search by speaker, and just browse the archives. But get the notes, not because I want you to digest our opinions, but because then it's in writing and you can put it next to your Bible, pull it up on your phone, set it next to your Bible and go, okay, well, this is what they were talking about when they made that point. Do I see this in the text? And this is when you cultivate a conversation with the Lord anchored in the scriptures, and pull your buddies into it in real time, in real place, eyeball to eyeball or on the phone or something, but like real people, real conversation, real fellowship. So again, we hope that these resources encourage you. And I really hope this war ends soon. So thank you guys for your ongoing support of our ministry here in Israel. We have, I can give you a little bit of a field family update for us here in Israel. But I do also want to point out that we have teams throughout the Arab and Muslim world. We've been in the Muslim world for longer than we've been working and serving in Israel. And our ambition here is to show strategic solidarity with Israel and strengthen the safety and security of life here, especially, we live on the northern front. And so a couple of days ago, for example, we were able to bring in a shelter, a rocket shelter for our village playground. We continue to work. Marco's been spearheading our bomb shelter campaign, partnering with municipalities and councils and governmental leaders, in different regions and provinces in the north of Israel, and kind of work our way through the country to fortify and renovate old, dilapidated public bomb shelters. And certainly we're trying to kind of race through it responsibly, not we're trying to do as much as we can, as well as we can, before things really pop off here in the north. So thank you to everybody who has given to our Israel Fund, given to our bomb shelter campaign, or joined our $5 monthly giving campaign just to fund the proclamation of the gospel of the kingdom throughout the Middle East, and serve well in this war, and serve the nation of the covenant, the stewards of the covenant, through a very grueling season. So thank you all. Maranatha.